Okay, everybody, here we go. So this is going to be a new format to present it on. Hopefully it's going to be a little bit more user-friendly for you guys re-looking over the slides, not so many extra stuff. So we are starting topic 2. Okay, so topic 2 is going to be on the Industrial Revolution. And this section is called Innovation Boosts Growth. So we're going to start with steel. Okay, so steel is a huge deal when it comes to industrialization. It was a game changer. So it was created by this Bessemer process. Okay, so it's developed by a British man named Henry Bessemer in the 1850s. And it's a process of purifying iron to make strong, lightweight steel. And it allowed for the creation of skyscrapers, suspension bridges, and elevators. I mean, anything that went up or had any power had steel. So this is a huge innovation and one that you want to remember. So oil, steel, electricity enable technological innovation. Okay, so this is kind of like what kicks off this industrial revolution. All right, so the first industrial revolution was steam. The second industrial revolution is steel. All right, so steel rails for railroads, and then the ability to build skyscrapers. So like I said, anything that goes up or out, steel is involved in, okay? And because steel is such a big deal, it's creating more jobs, right? So you got to lay the rails, so you got to have jobs for that. You've got to build the buildings, so you got to have jobs for that. And because you're building buildings, you have places to put factories where you can create more. People have more money, therefore there's more disposable income, which means more jobs. Okay, so after the Civil War, large numbers of Europeans and Asians are immigrating to the United States. The war is over, it's a safe place to live again. So in 1881, nearly 750,000 immigrants came to the United States, and it changed the face of what it looks like. So they're willing to work for low wages, so competition for jobs is fierce, and it pushed many poor Americans out of jobs. So if you remember what I was talking about last week, with how after the Civil War, we've got Reconstruction going on, African Americans are working for less money too. So the freedmen are working for less money. And now you have the Europeans coming in and they're working for less money. So you get the poor Americans, the white Americans, and they're being pushed out of their jobs because the employers want to spend less. All right, so a lot of them are coming to the South. The poor whites are coming to the South. They're becoming the tenant farmers. Okay, so this kind of puts the whole picture together. We talked about last week what was going on in the South. We're going to talk about this week what's going on in the North and how they interact. So you've got all of these new immigrants coming in. They're working for lower wages. And then you have Andrew Carnegie. So Andrew Carnegie, you hear his name everywhere. There's Carnegie Libraries, there's Carnegie Hall. He was the guy that did steel. Okay, so Henry Bessemer came up with the product. He figured out how to use it. So he used free enterprise. So free enterprise is really important. It's the freedom to run a business for profit with minimal regulation. Okay, so today we have things like OSHA, right, that put laws into place to make sure things are safe. You have fire code regulations. In the schools, as crowded as we feel right now, you know, there's a limit on how many students are allowed in the classroom, right? Because there's safety laws in place, you know, and there's laws that are in place now on trade. So back then, there wasn't any laws in place, all right? So it's free enterprise. You can run a business, you can make money, and nobody's going to tell you how to do it. Right? And entrepreneurs are guys that capitalized on this. So Andrew Carnegie, he's a big entrepreneur. All right, so they're people who build and manage businesses or enterprises in order to make a profit. All right, so he built Carnegie Steel. Like I said, he used the Bessemer process to create product that he was able to sell. So he created the rails that were needed for the railroad spreading across the country. Okay, so back then, the Carnegie Steel Company was worth $475 million. Somebody do the math now to find out how much he's worth. So innovation is driving economic development. right? We've got these entrepreneurs coming in, like Andrew Carnegie, who are making just bank on creating these steel rails, right? Well, we've got this product, and now we've got the curiosity to do something with it. All right, so innovation and efficiency is king. The number of patents are growing. Businesses investing heavily in scientific discoveries and innovations. All right, so here's the deal. Remember how Carnegie is not the guy that invented steel, he's the guy that used steel. Right, so you've got Henry Bessemer, who invented the idea of steel. Well, what these entrepreneurs are doing is they're investing in research so that they are able to use the product that comes out of it. The picture here is of two steam engines. So the first industrial revolution was the revolution of steam, all right? And so with the invention of steel, we're able to make these massive engines like this. All right, well, as research goes and they're able to create more, industry grows. So we've got Thomas Edison. All right, Thomas Edison, everybody knows who Thomas Edison is. He's the guy that invented the light bulb, but he was so much more. And the thing is Thomas Edison was able to do what he did because of entrepreneurs. So J.P. Morgan is a major entrepreneur. We still have him around today, like his name everywhere. If you know about Chase Bank, that the full name of Chase Bank is J.P. Morgan Chase. All right, so he's J.P. Morgan. He's a big business guy, right? Well, he wanted to make money, and so he funded research. And so he funded the research of Thomas Edison at Menlo Park, New Jersey in 1876, right? In a few months of formal education, but he made more than 1,000 patents. Okay, he just was a creation machine. And he created the light bulb and power plants that electrified entire areas of cities. All right, so all of a sudden, with the creation of the light bulb and power, factories are able to run longer. Okay, so before, we're really limited on when the sun comes up and the sun goes down, right? Because then you add risks such as flame, right, inside these factories, which had no safety requirements to begin with. All right, so you have the light bulb is created, you have power created, so this allows for industry to continue to grow. And it starts powering machines. So another innovation that comes out of this time is communication. All right, so not only do we have the light bulb by Thomas Edison, but Alexander Graham Bell is creating the telephone and much more. All right, so the question for this slide is, how do telecommunication innovations improve the standard of living in the United States? Well, check this out. You send a letter from Missouri to California. How long should it take? Well, by regular mail at this time, you're looking at 2 days to 2 months. If you can use Pony Express, 10 days. But the telegraph message sped everything up to 1 hour. All right, we're all used to this instant communication, right? Where we send a text and instantly they get it. And if it takes longer than 10 seconds, we get concerned that something went wrong. Not so much here. Okay, so remember, Missouri, we took that map test. Missouri is in the middle of the United States, right? So Missouri sending a letter halfway across the country to California took an hour, which for them is just incredible. So be able to communicate more is a huge innovation, because then they can send information faster, they could spread innovations further, and it made things safer. And we're going to learn how that happens. So technology is affecting travel. Railroads are growing really fast. Many towns set their time independently. So guess what? This is before time zones. Okay? So now, like if you're going from here to Gatlinburg, I think, it's like an hour difference, right? Even if you go, I have family that lives up in Elizabethtown, right? On your way up to Louisville, Kentucky. There's a time difference, right? Well, that comes from this time period. Okay, so we've got these railroads running, towns are setting their times independently, but for the railroads to run safely, they really need to standardize their time. Okay, they need to have a set schedule, and we need to know what time those trains are on the tracks, because if we don't, then there's accidents. And there was a lot of really big accidents at this time. So they created time zones. So they were invented by delegates from 27 different countries. Because remember, America's not a bubble. This information is going worldwide. So they're creating rails and trains across the globe. And they're all running into the same problem. And so they all got together and they created time zones, 24 time zones, one for each hour of the day. All right, and this made rail travel much safer. And you know that telegraph that we talked about in the last slide? If there was an accident on the rails, they could telegraph the next stop so they could stop the trains. So both those innovations really made it safer to travel on the rails. So what's going on in the South? Now, we talked about how the South was really destroyed by the Civil War, right? The North had a lot of industry. We talked about that a little bit on the first activity, right? There was tons of industry from the North, and it was booming. But the South is still recovering from the Civil War. The Civil War, they made sure to destroy any rails, any roads, any plants, anything, all right, to make things productive there. So the South had to recover, but they still had cash crops like tobacco and cotton. Now, cash crops are crops that you grow to earn a profit. So they're not grown to be sustainable, that you can't live off of them, right? So tobacco, you're growing it so that you can sell it. Same thing with cotton. You're growing it so that you can sell it. And that's what a cash crop is. And the South still had a lot of that. They could still be very agricultural, right? And Northern investors were like, wait a minute, we could take advantage of the cheaper land down south and we'll build some textile mills. All right. So with the growth of these railroads going back down into the South, the North is building textile mills in the South, right? And so they're starting to begin to have innovation of their own. And this is a picture of a woman working in a textile mill in the South. So what does the decline in distribution of income between 1860 and 1880 tell you about the South's economy? Okay, so in 1860, it was 74% of the rest of the nation had the funds, and the South had 26%. 1880, it was much smaller of income, right? But then you look at the distribution of population. The distribution of population in 1860, a little bit the same. But the population, you still have a lot of population down here in the South, but not as much income in 1880. Okay, so this is as industry is growing, but this tells you a story about the South. This is why we read these graphs and why they're important, right? So for the South, they're only starting to recover. The North, they don't have to recover from the battles. It takes a really long time for the South to financially recover. And unfortunately, the North's industry just careens on past them. That's why you see so much more industry in the North. You still see it that way today. We have the effects of industrialization. All right, so they dominate the world market. By 1900, the United States had almost as many miles of railroad track as the world combined. Okay, so yes, the world is expanding the railroad tracks, but the United States, we're cruising, right? And the U.S. would easily transport goods within the country. All right, so that means that our economy is booming. And the exports of food and goods expanded the U.S. economy. So not only are we making enough goods for the U.S. and we're able to distribute it around the U.S., we're making enough goods to distribute it across the globe. So we are exporting. Exporting is when you send goods and services outside of the country. All right. So we're able to export and grow our economy. And daily life is changing too. Farms begin to be mechanized, resulting in less farm laborers, which means there's farm equipment that takes less people to do it, which means, guess what? More poor whites are out of work. Out of work farmers and their families move to urban areas, right? So because there's easy access to goods and a higher cost of living, unfortunately. But there's jobs. And waste from mining began to damage the land. And this is something that we're going to look at a little bit later. It ends up completely destroying parts of the country. And later on, we're going to see how presidents took a stand to change that. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this and the activities in the Nearpod that you get to do, and I will talk to you later.